Welcome to CineMyles, the show for cinephiles. I'm your host, Miles Hughes. I'm joined today by Mr. Matthew Tompkins,
Hello.
who is a esteemed actor in the Jacksonville community. He's also done some excellent film work, like the short film Kevin, that you can check out right here.
Oh, cool. Kevin.
Kevin.
It's Kevin.
As mad as Kevin. We are here today to talk about one of our mutual favorite filmmakers, Mr. Guillermo del Toro.
Yes.
I believe the very first day we met, you asked me if I loved Del Toro, and I said yes.
I think that's correct.
He's a really interesting and unique and visionary. I think the word visionary gets thrown around a lot, but it definitely applies to him. He has a way of finding something very seductive and beautiful in the macabre, in these very designs that would be gross and unsettling, and still kind of are if that's the intention. But he also puts his own stamp on them. He finds the heart within the monster.
That's a good way to put it. Like with a lot of his films, the two major things I usually see in his stuff is there's always a monster or something
supernatural, something out of this world,
and then somewhere in the story a relationship. Mostly, from what I've seen, it's a lot of parent-child relationships in a lot of his films.
So we thought we'd do a quick retrospective of all the films he has done to date as of 2016.
Yep.
When we were recording this. So we're going to start off with his debut feature film, Cronos. Which I had not seen until you showed it to me.
I found a copy of the DVD at a Barnes & Noble years ago. And I'm like, oh, I've never seen this. And I saw this Guillermo. I'm like, oh. And then the cover of it is art by Mike Mignola, who's one of my favorite artists.
Who did the Hellboy comics that he went on to adapt.
So good. Guillermo wanted to make a movie to show who he is as a filmmaker.
Yes, it is a perfect first feature for him, in the same way that, say, Following is a perfect first feature for Christopher Nolan, or Pi for Darren Aronofsky. It is a very good, low-budget encapsulation of what they're about as filmmakers. Because there's not a lot of crazy special effects stuff in Cronos, but you get just enough to get a feel for his style, to get a feel for the themes he likes to explore. There is it's like the grandfather and the granddaughter.
Yeah, that relationship in there. And then
and the father-son relationship for the villains as well.
Ron Perlman is in it.
Ron Perlman's in it. He's great.
He speaks Spanish.
He tries to speak Spanish.
He does great.
He's a lot of fun. The few special effects there are really great.
Well, there's a lot of beautiful makeup work.
And I really like... So it's all about this little device that an old man finds.
It looks like a golden scarab almost.
Yes, and when he holds it a certain way, it stings him.
Yeah, and it grants him eternal life.
And you get to see inside of the thing, and it's this disgusting creature, clockwork type thing.
It looks like a slug hooked up to a grandfather clock,
and it gives so much character to what would otherwise just be like a very simple prop.
Yeah,
and it sort of makes it this centerpiece of the film.
A wonderful first film for Del Toro, I think.
Yeah, really, really set the bar, set the standard for what he would go on to do. His next film was his first attempt at joining the Hollywood system, Mimic, which I have not seen, but you've seen.
Yes.
It's on my Netflix queue. It's one of the ones I just haven't gotten around to yet. Way to do research for the video, Miles.
We're so
prepared.
Yeah. This beetle that's supposed to get rid of other insects. It's called the Judas beetle. The reason it's called Mimic is because the insect is supposed to be able to disguise itself as other insects to make the other insects, oh, it's one of us. But it has evolved and mutated to where it almost looks like it's a human. But when you get close to it, the wings open up, it comes apart, and it's a giant insect.
I heard it was one of his lesser films. I can
see why.
It makes me think of Species or other 90s sort of sci-fi erotic.
It definitely goes in that vein. People probably brush it aside. Oh, it's another science fiction film. And also at this time, Guillermo was not a big name yet.
No, there was no draw just based on the fact that he was making it. So next he did another Spanish language film called The Devil's Backbone, which is another one, the only other one that I haven't seen. But you've seen it, right? So neither of us have seen The Devil's Backbone, but we'll get around to it. I hear it's great.
I hear it's wonderful.
I'm sure we'll love it. We'll probably do a special episode where we catch up on Devil's Backbone.
We should.
Moving right along to his next film, which we have seen, Blade 2. Now, the Blade films hold a very interesting place in film history, specifically superhero movie history. The first Blade could arguably be one of the films that really got the superhero genre going. You had like Blade, X-Men, Spider-Man, sort of the 1, 2, 3 punch that really got that genre up and away. And then...
Pun intended.
And then... I didn't even do that on purpose.
Oh, then pun not intended. And
pun disintended, but reintended.
But found.
But then, obviously, the third one was terrible. But I think it's commonly agreed, with some exceptions, that number 2 is the best. And primarily because of Guillermo's vision that he adds to it.
Well, if there's...
Specifically the villains. The villain, the way, like, his mouth opens like a Venus flytrap.
How many times has he recreated the vampire?
Yeah.
Several times.
Yeah.
So I gotta hand it to him for, I don't know.
You get to keep coming back to that concept, buddy.
Yeah, no, but every time it's a fresh take. I mean, there are some similarities, for like, if you look at Cronos, Blade 2, and if you look at The Strain, I'm sorry I brought up The Strain, he didn't want to bring up The Strain, they always have this white porcelain skin.
Yes. Yeah, his vampire design is pretty consistent across everything he works on. But
he always makes just their delivery of, like, I'm gonna suck your blood, just new and exciting.
There's something interesting. This one has a similar thing to Strain, isn't it? Where like there's like a thing, like a slug type thing that comes out of the mouth that like latches on.
Well, that's what's cool.
I would say the best Blade movie. It's got some great action. Ron Perlman's in it.
Ron Perlman is to Guillermo del Toro what Johnny Depp is to
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton. It's just like except
match made in heaven.
I have no problem with Ron Perlman in anything.
One of the first ones that mainstream audiences started to really recognize his style, which is the first Hellboy.
Back to Ron Perlman!
Back to Ron Perlman. It's technically a superhero movie, but it's not necessarily always lumped in with them.
It doesn't... It's...
Because it's not as well-known a character, and it's even not as well-known a movie. But it is a lot of fun. Some great characters.
Abraham Sapien, Liz Sherman, Jeffrey Tambor's character.
Yes, I don't remember the character's name, but he's great. He's like the stick up his ass.
We got to keep this contained.
Oh my god, what's the press gonna think? We got to deal with the press. And some great villains. Rasputin is interesting, but what's Cronin? Cronin is great.
Karl Ruprecht Cronin. We're gonna make him this sawdust-filled clockwork. Eyelid removed, lip removed.
Oh yeah, he has
zombie creature.
He has like an addiction to like
surgery. He has surgical addiction. It's really cool.
Which is so cool and unique, and I don't know that I've seen another character like that.
No, it's so good.
I really like the main tentacle monster, Samael.
Oh, that looks like a hound.
Yeah, like the hound with like the dreadlocks. He's really cool. I think the fight scene they have in the subway is amazing. Guillermo getting to play like on a bigger scale.
Budget,
yeah.
But he still keeps the practical effects, which I really love.
Yes, it's more practical effects. There's the giant weird monster at the end that's around the point when the movie...
It's very just boom, CGI budget.
I would say the movie's about 15 minutes longer than it needs to be.
It did not need to end with the tentacle monster.
No.
Did not.
And there's also the audience insertion character, who everyone always forgets about because he's very forgettable.
He was never in the comic.
Well, he's not. He's barely in the movie, but he's like the main character, kind of.
I think they realized he wasn't needed when they made the second one.
In between Hellboys, he did a passion project that I think most would agree, I know for me, is Del Toro's finest film.
Oh, no, that's his...
And
that's
one of the best fantasy films ever made.
It's beautiful.
Pan's Labyrinth. Set during the Spanish Civil War, and it's all about this little girl who finds this labyrinth... in like an active war zone, where all these mystical creatures come to life, and she has to like go on these 3 quests, and this wonderful faun played by Doug Jones is sort of like, oh my god, he's one of my favorite characters ever.
Makeup is so beautiful.
It's so
that
great.
Makeup is so beautiful.
And I read a story about Doug Jones in that movie that I think gives me so much respect for him as an actor, because he doesn't speak Spanish. To wear the makeup, like, because the head is like this whole animatronic thing, and like he can barely move around, he's on stilts, so he's acting opposite someone that he can't see in a language he doesn't understand, and also he can't even hear her. So the fact that he does such a good job and creates such a distinct character, like I'm sure the outtakes are full of him like tripping over stuff or like running into walls or whatever. There's some CGI, but it's very minimal.
Oh yeah. Most
of it is like these really gorgeous... The Pale Man. The Pale Man is amazing.
That is such a...
God.
That's what sold me in the trailer. The moment I saw that was such a... Doug Jones. He knows how to work his hands in this beautiful way. Like,
he's got such distinct finger movements.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Really good human villain.
The rabbit scene?
The stepfather. Yeah, the rabbit scene where he like bashes the guy's face in with the bottle. Oh my god. It's so intense. Yeah,
That's another parent-child relationship. The mother,
the mother and the daughter,
and the stepfather, who's the scary villain.
Yeah,
guy.
it's supposed to be like this paternal figure, but is like terrifying in every scene he's in, or like the scene where he has to stitch his face back together.
That's such a great scene.
Oh my god, it's a classic. It's one of the best fantasy films ever made. Have to check out Pan's Labyrinth. But then back into Hollywood and back into Hellboy. We got Hellboy 2: The Golden Army.
Don't hate me for this. I kind of compare it to the Mummy franchise. Here's why. So you have Hellboy 1 and the first Mummy, right? They both play into, I'd say, more of the horror themes of it for its story. And then you go into the sequels, The Mummy Returns and Hellboy 2, to where it delves more into the fantasy world.
More into the fantasy. Also, I think both sequels are a bit funnier, a bit lighter.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
which isn't a bad thing for either one. I
mean, the Barry Manilow scene in Hellboy 2.
The best scene in Hellboy 2 is when Hellboy and Abe are just drunk and they're just singing Barry Manilow on the stairs, and it's this wonderfully human moment for these like supernatural characters that is so fun. The scene everyone talks about that is absolutely phenomenal is the troll market.
It was filmed in a quarry,
and they just go into this area, and it's all these practical effects and just all these creatures and characters just like walking around like going about their business, and it's this wonderful glimpse into this crazy weird world.
I feel like Harryhausen rose from his grave to watch just that,
to give
scene.
his blessing to that scene. Yeah. The Golden Army itself is probably the weakest part, I would say. They're not amazing. They're not terrible.
Well, I mean,
but they're very straightforward.
I mean, after just seeing the Angel of Death.
The Angel of Death,
also played by Doug Jones, and then this all CGI Golden Army.
Well, just like these clockmen that are just like they're kind of shuffling around. The design on them isn't all that interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm actually leaving out one of my favorite characters in that movie, Johann Kraus,
played by Seth MacFarlane. Who's great. I love the scene where like he leaks out of the suit and then he's beating Hellboy up with
lockers. That's.
It's great.
You need to focus. Well, the way you say it, I wouldn't say it.
So Hellboy 2 is a lot of fun. It sets up a sequel that we may never get. It's got to be an expensive movie, and neither of the Hellboy movies were particularly successful at the box office.
They're cult classics.
They're cult classics, but a cult classic doesn't get like a major blockbuster
It does
funded.
not.
And when it does, that movie usually loses money.
It does.
Hey there, Tron Legacy. How's number 3 coming along?
Oh,
Still not happening? After Hellboy 2, he stayed in blockbuster territory with something somewhat different, yet somewhat similar, Pacific Rim. I freaking love Pacific Rim. For starters, it's a much better Godzilla movie than the Godzilla movie we got recently. Yeah. You got giant robots fighting giant monsters in glorious splendor. It's mostly CG this time around, rather than motion capture, which is the popular thing. It's actually animated, but like they have such a weight and scale.
Oh no, it's great. I love
all the robots look great. All the monsters.
The monsters are
great.
gorgeous.
My favorite is I think it's Otachi. He's the one who's like the Swiss Army knife monster. This guy. And like he has wings at one point. He spits acid. He just does all these different things, and he's great. I really like the big guy too, the big bulky one, Leatherback. He has the energy wave.
Yes. Okay. Oh my. That shuts down. Oh.
Yeah.
Leatherback. Okay.
So all the monster fighting stuff in that is flawlessly phenomenal. I love when they use like the fairy as a baseball bat. Like all that little stuff is great. The cast is kind of a mixed bag. On the one hand, you got Idris Elba, who's always reliable. Rinko Kikuchi is always great. Charlie Day is a lot of fun.
Another parent-child relationship.
Yeah, adopted, but it plays on the same
still works,
themes, and that feels very Del Toro. Yeah, Charlie Day and Burn Gorman, great comic relief as the wacky scientists.
Well, I love it. Let's take Charlie Day and have him hang out with Ron Perlman for a little bit.
And then you got Ron Perlman. Ron Perlman, flashy. Probably the best scene, I think, is the flashback of Rinko Kikuchi's character.
The giant crab.
And we see her as a little girl, and it's a really, terrifying scene.
The colors in that scene.
The colors in the movie are amazing. It's so vibrant.
Well, another thing about Del Toro, I think he knows how to use colors.
Yes.
He knows how to use color. And
Hellboy really shows it off, especially the second one, and then Pacific Rim really shows it off. Charlie Hunnam is kind of a boring protagonist.
He's the protagonist.
He's bland,
blockbuster protagonist.
He's action guy. And then there's like the bully character who like he has a rivalry with, but then they're best friends at the end.
Yeah.
Which is kind of dumb.
I'm okay with it.
So they're working on the sequel to Pacific Rim that Del Toro is not making.
What?
He's not directing it. It's being directed by Stephen DeKnight, who did, he was the showrunner for the first season of Daredevil.
Okay. I haven't seen Daredevil. I've seen the first episode of Daredevil. I need to see Daredevil.
It's good. It's really good.
Yeah.
And I think I'd be interested to see what he does as a future director. They've got John Boyega from Force Awakens playing Idris Elba's character's son.
I'm cool with that.
So he's a good actor. I'm happy to see him doing more big stuff. I want to see more from that world. They do really good world building. That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
They really set up like how
Here's what's
everything
happening.
works and like what the economy is like and what like politics. I don't know. It's just it feels very lived in. I want to see more from it. And finally, we get to his most recent film, which especially after doing this retrospective is kind of starting to seem like possibly his worst film. Crimson Peak is a ghost story that has almost nothing to do with ghosts.
No. In the beginning of the movie, she says this is not a ghost story. This is a love story with ghosts.
Yeah, but the ghosts don't do anything. They look really surreal.
They're beautiful.
I would say they're the best part of the movie.
It's the first time I would ever consider a ghost as beautiful.
Yes, exactly. But here are the two things that the ghosts do in the movie. One of them points. There's a bit where she's going down the stairs, and one of them points her in the right direction. Like, go that way. It's like, thanks, ghost. And then at the end, Tom Hiddleston is a ghost, and he distracts his sister by just being there long enough for Mia Wasikowska to hit her in the face with a shovel. So it's not a ghost story, that's fine. But it's also not a story about anything else.
It feels like an old Victorian novel. The way Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Dracula, they don't really play into like, oh, now there's this happening. Oh, now there's a monster. Oh, now there's this.
No, it's much more about mood and tone and atmosphere.
Exactly. I'll give it that.
Give it that. And I'll say this. Aesthetically, atmospherically, it's gorgeous. Visually stunning. I like the music. I like the costumes, the production design. It looks amazing. The colors are definitely in
Of
full
all its
force.
films, I find that one, to me, the most visually stunning. Out of all the films he's made.
That's fair. It looks really great. The problem is the characters are pretty one-dimensional, and there's not enough of a story to keep the visuals afloat.
The main girl,
Alice in Wonderland, yeah, she's fine.
No, because she plays like she's so independent in the beginning of the film,
and then she becomes this damsel in distress.
Exactly, that's the part that upsets me.
Yeah, I think Tom Hiddleston's good in it.
I think he does a great job.
He does a great job. Jessica Chastain to me was a little miscast. I don't think she's crazy enough. I don't think she's bad, because I like Jessica Chastain as an actress, but I don't think she fits that role necessarily. Charlie Hunnam is better than he was in Pacific Rim. He's the doctor. He's okay.
He's in the beginning and he's in the end.
Like, it's not a horrible movie, but it's disappointing because Guillermo can do so much better. And I think he just didn't have a strong story to hang all of his beautiful aesthetic stuff onto. It is interesting that we're talking about Guillermo today because just this morning it was announced that his next film just started production.
What?
It's called The Shape of Water. It's set during the Cold War.
Okay.
And it is about a woman who falls in love with a merman. It stars Michael Shannon, Sally Hawkins, Richard Jenkins, and Doug Jones. I'm very interested to see what that turns out to be.
Me too. Oh my god.
Crimson Peak notwithstanding, he's still a wonderful director, an amazing storyteller, and I'm very, his career is always going to be one to look out for.
Oh yeah.
He's a kind of a tragic filmmaker sometimes because he'll want to be making like 5 projects at any given time. All of them sound amazing.
Pinocchio.
If he's lucky, he'll get to make one of them. So, like, for example, he wanted to make a Frankenstein film starring Doug Jones as the monster.
Which would have been amazing.
Will we ever see it? I can't say. He also wanted to do Justice League Dark, like darker, weirder characters. Justice League, so like Constantine would be the head of the team. You got like Zatanna and Swamp Thing and all these like what Suicide Squad could have been.
I want that.
Doesn't that
I
sound
want a
great?
Guillermo del Toro.
Doesn't that sound really cool?
That sounds really cool.
It's not going to happen. Yay! Thank you for watching CineMyles. Y'all have a good night. Do you want to say goodbye?
Yeah. Goodbye, everyone else.
Goodbye.